The spaceport was alive with noise that morning. Ships rose into the sky like silver birds, engines glowing hot, sending dust and warm air across the landing platforms. Humans hurried from one gate to another, carrying bags, shouting into their comms, waving to friends they might never see again. Robots rolled smoothly through the hall, scanning tickets and guiding confused travelers. In the middle of all this movement, among thousands of footsteps and hundreds of voices, stood one figure who did not move at all. She looked fragile, almost breakable, like a flower trying to survive a storm. Her name was Lyra. Lyra was an alien mother from a faraway world. Her skin was soft blue, glowing faintly like moonlight on water. She wore a long robe that looked old and tired, and she held something pressed tightly against her chest. It was a small bundle wrapped in silver cloth, her baby, her only child. His tiny head rested near her heart, but his breathing was weak, almost silent. Lyra stepped forward slowly, her knees shaking as if the ground itself was judging her. Her voice trembled when she spoke. "Please help my child, he needs medicine. Human medicine, please." But no one stopped. No one turned. People walked past her like she was a shadow, like she did not belong in this bright human place. A man pushing a luggage cart glanced at her and frowned before moving on. A woman in a business suit stepped around her as if Lyra were nothing more than an obstacle in her busy morning. A group of young travelers laughed loudly, their voices drowning out Lyra's soft, painful pleas. Even the security bot simply beeped and rolled away when it detected she had no ticket. Lyra tightened her hold on her child. His breath rattled like a tiny machine with a broken part. Each inhale sounded worse than the one before. He needed medicine, medicine only humans made, medicine that her world could not afford, medicine that was supposed to be given freely in emergencies. But emergencies, she had learned, depended on who you were. She tried again. Her voice was thinner now, like a thread close to breaking. "Please, anyone, help me." Her words disappeared into the noise of the spaceport, swallowed by engines, footsteps, and conversations. Lyra felt panic rising inside her. She had traveled across 3 systems with nothing but hope and a sick child. Hope had been her fuel. Hope had kept her awake through long nights. Hope had made her believe that humans, the great helpers of the galaxy, would show mercy. But now, standing in this cold place full of rushing strangers, she felt her hope fading. She moved toward the medical counter. Her heartbeat raced as she approached the bright desk with the glowing red cross. The clerk sitting behind it was a young human man, bored, chewing something lazily. Lyra bowed her head slightly in respect. "Please, my child, he is very sick. I need the emergency medicine kit. Please, I beg you." The man barely looked at her. "ID?" he asked dryly. I have travel papers, but no human ID." "Then no service, next." Lyra's eyes widened. "Please, my baby, he will die." "That's not my problem," the clerk replied, tapping at his screen. "Next." Lyra felt her legs weaken. She tried to speak again, but her throat closed with grief. She backed away from the desk, holding tightly as tears rolled down her cheeks. She looked around desperately for anyone who might listen, but the world kept moving. Everyone was busy, everyone was in a hurry, everyone had their own troubles. And she was just one alien mother begging in a place that did not have time for her. At that moment made a soft, broken sound, like a baby bird calling for its mother. Lyra pressed her lips to his forehead. "I am here, my little one," she whispered. "I will not stop, I will not leave you, please stay with me." But the truth was terrifying. She had no more strength. No more credits. No more doors left to knock on. She stood alone in the center of the great spaceport, her baby fatting in her arms, while thousands of eyes refused to see her and thousands of hearts refused to hear her. And yet, somewhere in the crowd, not far away, a human had turned his head. A human had stopped moving. A human had heard her cry. He just didn't know yet that her child's life would soon rest in his hands. Walker was late. His boots echoed against the metal floor of the spaceport as he ran toward his shuttle, tools slung over his shoulder and a buzzing in his hand. Messages from engineers, supervisors, and clients all demanded his attention. He was already tired, already running on the edge of exhaustion. Every second counted. But then he heard it, a sound so soft it almost didn't exist among the chaos of engines, announcements, and human chatter. A cry, a small, broken sound. A sound that was not human but not completely alien either. He stopped. The crowd flowed past him, a river of bodies that didn't notice him standing still. But's heart did something strange. It skipped. His chest tightened. He turned slowly and saw her. She was small, barely more than a shadow in the sea of moving people. Her skin shimmered faintly blue, glowing like moonlight in a dark room. She knelt on the cold metal floor, rocking a tiny bundle wrapped in silver cloth. Her hands shook violently as she pressed it to her chest. Every movement was careful, gentle, full of love, and full of desperation. Realized what she was saying before he even heard the words. Her lips moved, forming sounds of a language he didn't understand fully, but the meaning was clear. She was begging, pleading, crying. "My child, please help." Her voice cracked, weak and trembling. Her eyes, wide and wet, looked around the spaceport for anyone who might care. But no one did. They passed by without noticing. A merchant pushed a cart, brushing her sleeve without apology. A group of students laughed as they ran past, their hoverboards buzzing, completely oblivious. Even a robot rolled close and then beeped, signaling her to move along. Felt a pang deep inside. Something about the helplessness in her eyes made him stop breathing for a moment. He looked down at the tiny bundle in her arms. The baby's chest was rising and falling too slowly. Every exhale sounded shallow, weak, as if the child's life was slowly slipping into nothing. Without thinking, moved closer. The crowd parted around him like water around a stone. He knelt beside her, his eyes scanning the baby. "Hey," he said softly. "Are you okay? Your child, he's sick, isn't he?" The alien mother flinched at the sound of his voice. Her head lifted, and for the first time a flicker of hope appeared in her eyes. Her lips trembled as she whispered, "Please, my son, he needs human medicine. They refuse me." Felt a sharp, bitter ache in his chest. He had seen sickness before, he had seen accidents, injuries, broken bones, but never a parent begging in a place like this, desperate while the world ignored her. "My name is," he said gently, reaching out to place a hand near the baby, but not touching, just close enough to offer comfort. "I'm going to help. What's your name?" "Lyra," she whispered. This is my son. He cannot breathe properly. He needs medicine." Nodded, his mind raced. Rules, papers, and protocols were useless when a life hung by a thread. "I'll get him the help he needs," he promised. "I swear." Tears spilled down Lyra's cheeks, tiny drops glowing on her blue skin. She clutched closer, as if holding him could somehow keep the world from taking him away. You will?" she asked, her voice barely audible. "Yes," said firmly, standing and gently signaling her to stay with him. "I won't let him die, not today, not if I can stop it." People continued to pass by. No one offered help. No one stopped to question the rules or the danger, but did not care. He felt a new strength rising inside him, something he had never recognized before, a human determination that refused to turn away from suffering, no matter the cost. He looked down at it again. The baby's tiny chest was still weak, still shallow, but could feel life there. A fragile, flickering life that depended on action. And for the first time in days, Lyra allowed herself to hope. "Follow me," said softly. "We'll get you help, don't let go of him." She nodded, gripping as tightly as her fear would allow. Her legs shook as she stood, leaning slightly on for support. Together, they began to move through the crowd, leading the way, Lyra following with every ounce of strength she had. Somewhere deep in the heart of the spaceport, a quiet truth became clear. Not all humans ignored the suffering of others. Some listened. Some acted. Some could see a mother in need and a life at risk and slow down even when the galaxy moved too fast. And Walker, who had been late for everything that morning, had just become that human, carried carefully in his arms, feeling the fragile rhythm of the baby's chest under his hands. Every breath was a fight, every small movement a plea for help. Lyra walked close behind, her trembling hands brushing against his arm as if afraid that letting go for even a second would mean losing her son forever. They reached the nearest medical counter, a bright white desk glowing with a red cross. Stepped forward quickly, his voice loud enough to cut through the hum of the busy spaceport. "My patient needs emergency care. He's sick, very sick. You have to help him now." The clerk behind the counter looked up slowly with a bored expression. He was a young human with a perfectly ironed uniform and an attitude that said nothing he did would ever matter. "ID?" he asked flatly. His heart skipped. He's a child. He doesn't have an ID. I have travel papers. He is dying. Please, it's an emergency." The clerk tilted his head, unconcerned. "Without proper ID or payment, we cannot provide service. Please step aside. Next." Felt a sharp sting of anger. He clenched his fists. Rules were killing a child. He looked at Lyra, her blue skin pale with worry, her hands clutching her baby like he was her last piece of hope. "We can't leave him here," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "We won't," said firmly. "Not while he's alive." He tried another counter, same result. The human there shook his head. "No citizen records, no service, move along." Panic rose in Lyra's chest. "Please, please, my child, he cannot wait, he will die." Her voice cracked and tears streaked down her cheeks. Her hands trembled so much she could barely hold safely. Tried the emergency hotline. "I need immediate assistance. A child's life is in danger." "Priority cases only," came the cold response. "No exceptions, please try later." The words were like ice water poured over his soul. He clenched his jaw and gritted his teeth. How could the galaxy, the people, the humans, so proud, so advanced, ignore the life of a child? He turned back to Lyra. She was crouched now, hugging tightly to her chest, rocking him softly, whispering lullabies in a language he did not understand. Her eyes were wide with fear and helplessness. Knelt beside her. "We're not leaving," he said, holding out his hand gently. "I will not let him die, I promise." Lyra looked up, hope flickering like a tiny candle in the storm. You will?" she asked. "I will," said firmly. "We'll find a way. I won't let the rules decide his life, not today." She nodded, still clutching, still trembling, still afraid. But for the first time, she believed. Scanned the spaceport, looking for somewhere, anywhere, where they could get help. Then he saw the maintenance bay, a quiet place tucked behind a row of cargo lifts. Few people remembered it existed. It wasn't official. It wasn't legal. But it was a place where those who dared to care could work miracles away from the busy rules and cold bureaucracy of the main port. He picked up carefully, cradling him against his chest. "Come on," he whispered to Lyra. "We're going somewhere safe. Someone will help us." They moved quickly, weaving through the crowd. People stared, some curious, most still indifferent. No one offered assistance. A few made comments, muttering that they didn't have time for alien problems. Others shook their heads, clearly annoyed that this human had stopped to care. But ignored them all. His only thought was the soft, faint pulse of life in his arms, the weak breath of a child who depended entirely on the courage of strangers. Lyra stumbled once and he caught her gently. "You're doing great," he said. "We'll get him through this." For the first time, she allowed herself to hope, just a little. She followed him, leaning on his shoulder, her tears drying in the cold, artificial light. Every step felt like an eternity. Every moment was both terrifying and miraculous. And in that terrifying, miraculous moment, the truth became clear. In a galaxy that moved too fast to care, it only took one human to slow down, to act, to save a life. Didn't know how it would end. He didn't know if the maintenance bay would have what they needed. He only knew that he would not turn away. Not from Lyra, not from life itself, carried into the shadowed maintenance bay, a place most travelers ignored, tucked behind crates and humming machines. The air smelled of oil and metal, and small lights blinked across old medical devices stacked along the walls. It was quiet here, safe, hidden from the rules and rules enforcers of the busy spaceport. Lyra followed slowly, her arms wrapped protectively around herself, her blue skin pale with exhaustion. Her eyes never left her son, her tiny heart beating in her arms. Every step, every shallow breath he took, filled her with both hope and fear. She whispered his name, rocking him gently as if her love alone could keep him alive. Set down on a padded bench carefully. The baby's chest moved weakly, His breaths were shallow, almost faint, and stomach twisted at the sight. "He's alive," he muttered, mostly to himself, "and we'll keep him that way." A soft voice from the corner made him turn. Dr. Noah was there, crouched over a pile of tools. He had worked in this secret bay for years, repairing medical bots, rebuilding old emergency kits, and helping anyone who couldn't get help elsewhere. Noah's eyes widened when he saw the baby. "Put him down," Noah said urgently, taking the child carefully into his hands. "We don't have a second to waste." Lyra's knees buckled and she fell to the floor, unable to stop shaking. Knelt beside her, taking her hands gently. "He's safe," he said softly. "Noah is the best. He'll help." Tears ran freely down Lyra's cheeks. She whispered, her voice breaking, Why do you care? Why do humans care so little about others?" Didn't answer immediately. He looked at Lyra, at the fragile life he held in his hands. "Because some humans," he said finally, "refuse to look away. We see life and we fight for it, no matter who it belongs to." Noah worked quickly. Needles, vials, machines, everything moved in a blur of motion. He adjusted tubes, cleaned tiny airways, and injected medicine with steady hands. Every second mattered. Every moment remained without help could be the last. Lyra watched, unable to do more than pray. "Please survive, my son, please." Her voice was a whisper of hope, almost invisible, almost fragile. But could feel it, and it made him grip the edge of the bench harder. He could not fail her. He could not fail this child. The baby's chest stopped for a heartbeat. Lyra screamed, "No, no, don't leave me." Leaned over, placing a hand on her shoulder. "Stay calm," he said gently, though his own heart raced. "He's strong, he's still fighting, we're not done yet." Noah's eyes were sharp, focused, every muscle in his body moving with determination. He pressed, adjusted, injected, and monitored. The baby's chest twitched, a small, miraculous sign that life was still there. Then took a breath, another, then a third, slightly stronger. Noah smiled, but quietly, almost in relief. "He's stabilizing," he said. Lyra collapsed to her knees, sobbing, holding her child close. Thank you," she whispered over and over. Her tears fell freely, but they were tears of hope now, not despair. Stood behind her, letting her lean against him, feeling the tiny heartbeat of the baby against his chest. "We did it," he said softly. "We didn't give up." For the first time in what felt like days, Lyra allowed herself to breathe fully. She stroked small head, whispering gentle words she had barely known how to say before. You're alive, we are still here." Watched her, a strange mixture of awe and humility filling him. In this small bay, away from rules, regulations, and indifferent crowds, he saw the real power of humanity. Not the power of weapons or ships, not the pride of technology or empire, but the power to care, to refuse to turn away, to fight when others would not. Hours passed, the baby's breaths became steadier. Lyra finally lifted her head, looking at her eyes filled with gratitude she could not fully speak. You saved him," she said softly. "I don't know how to thank you." Shook his head. "You don't have to, just keep him alive, that's enough." Lyra smiled weakly, clutching her son. You are more than human," she whispered. Let out a small laugh, tired but genuine. "I'm human enough to not let a mother lose her child," he said. And in the quiet hum of the maintenance bay, amidst blinking machines and the soft, steady breath of a small alien boy, something profound settled in the air. One human heart refusing to quit had made all the difference. The galaxy outside could wait. Here in this small, hidden corner, life had won. The maintenance bay was quiet now, except for the soft hum of machines and the faint hiss of recycled air. But the quiet was fragile. His tiny chest still rose and fell with difficulty, every breath a delicate thread keeping him alive. Lyra crouched beside the padded bench, clutching her baby as if holding him closer might keep death from touching him. Tears streaked her face, and her lips whispered desperate words she barely understood herself. Stood nearby, his hands trembling slightly, not from fear, but from the intensity of responsibility pressing down on him. Every second mattered. Every tiny pause in breathing made his heart leap. He had never held such power over a life before, and he would not waste it. Noah worked with quiet precision, his hands moving almost instinctively over small body. Needles, tiny tubes, a warm solution pumped carefully into the baby's veins. Every movement mattered. Watched every motion, ready to help, ready to catch, ready to do anything necessary. At one point, stopped breathing. His chest froze. His lips turned a pale shade of blue that made Lyra scream in pure panic. "No, please, don't leave me," she cried, clutching him as if she could physically force him to breathe again. Stomach dropped. He bent down beside her, taking her trembling hands gently in his own. "Stay with him, don't panic. He's still fighting," he said, though his own voice quivered. He wished for 1,000 words of comfort, but found none sufficient for the terror in her eyes. Noah leaned over the baby, pressing, massaging, using every technique he knew. "Come on, fight, just a little longer," he muttered under his breath. Could see the sweat on his friend's forehead, the muscles in his arms tense from the effort. Every second felt like an hour, every breath felt like a battle won or lost. Lyra's tears fell freely now, soaking the silver blanket wrapped around her son. She whispered over and over a lullaby from her home planet, soft words of love, hope, and life. "You can do it, my little one, stay with me." Then almost imperceptibly, his chest twitched. One weak exhale followed by a second. Noah's hands moved faster, carefully monitoring the response, adjusting tubes, giving tiny doses of medicine. Held his breath, feeling the fragile rhythm of life pulse back into the tiny body. A third breath came, and then a fourth, slightly stronger. Noah smiled quietly, almost in relief, and whispered, "He's stabilizing, he's going to make it." Lyra collapsed onto the bench beside her son, sobbing softly, clutching him tightly. She whispered, you're alive, my little." Her tears mingled with joy and fear, washing over her in waves. For the first time in hours, she allowed herself to believe. Reached out, gently resting a hand on her shoulder. "It's going to be okay. He's going to be okay," he said softly. He could feel her trembling, her fear still clinging to her but slowly easing. She leaned against him for support, exhausted beyond words. Minutes passed. Breathing became steadier. His tiny fists moved, weakly but with life. Lyra held him closer, murmuring quiet promises, stroking his soft head. Could feel the relief settling in, a warmth spreading through him that had nothing to do with pride and everything to do with the simple miracle of life. You saved him," Lyra whispered finally, looking at with eyes full of gratitude, awe, and disbelief. How can I ever repay you?" Shook his head. "You don't need to, you just keep him alive, that's all that matters." But Lyra's hand found his, holding it briefly. "You are more than human," she said softly. Her voice carried a weight of emotion had never heard before. It was hope, gratitude, and something deeper, trust that life itself had chosen him as its champion. Smiled, exhausted but content. "I'm human enough to not let a mother lose her child," he said. The maintenance bay, hidden from the world outside, felt alive with quiet magic. Machines hummed, lights blinked softly, and a small alien boy's steady breathing filled the room with life. Outside, the spaceport continued in its rush and chaos, oblivious. But inside, a human heart had refused to quit. And in that refusal, life had been saved. For Lyra, and for the quiet truth that sometimes, the smallest act of courage can change everything. The world could wait. Here in this small hidden corner, hope was stronger than despair. Love was stronger than fear. Humanity at its best had arrived. And that was enough. Hours had passed since first fragile breaths had returned. The maintenance bay was quiet now, filled only with the soft hum of machines and the gentle sighs of a mother finally able to breathe. Lyra sat on the bench, holding her son tightly, her blue skin glowing faintly under the flickering lights. She stroked his tiny head and whispered words that sounded like music to human ears, words of love and gratitude. Stood beside her, leaning slightly against the wall. His arms were tired from holding supplies, helping and supporting Lyra, but his heart felt light. There was a quiet satisfaction in knowing that, for a brief moment, the galaxy had become a kinder place. "I don't know how to thank you," Lyra said softly, her voice still shaking. She looked up her eyes shining like stars. "You saved him, saved me." Shook his head. "You don't need to thank me," he said gently. "I just couldn't walk away. No mother should ever have to beg for her child's life, not in this galaxy, not anywhere." For a long moment they sat in silence. The machines beeped gently. The soft breathing of a small alien child filled the room, and outside the chaos of the spaceport continued, unaware of the miracle that had taken place. Finally, Lyra stood, still clutching her baby. She looked at with an intensity he had never felt before. "In my world," she said quietly, "a person who saves a child becomes family. You are family to us." Felt his chest tighten. Family. He had never considered himself a hero, never thought he could be more than a man trying to do the right thing. And yet, looking at Lyra and her son, he realized that sometimes courage and care could change everything. Together, they walked out of the maintenance bay and into the main spaceport. The crowd parted slowly, whispers spreading like wildfire. People noticed the alien mother, the baby, and the human who had carried them through the chaos. He helped her," one person whispered. "No one ever helps off," another muttered, shaking their head. But didn't notice the murmurs. He only noticed, now wrapped safely in his mother's arms, smiling weakly at the lights above. He noticed Lyra standing tall despite exhaustion, her eyes shining with hope. He noticed life, fragile, beautiful, and unstoppable. Lyra stopped and placed a hand on shoulder. "Thank you," she said softly, "for hearing me, for not looking away when everyone else did." Smiled, feeling something he hadn't felt in a long time, pride that was not about himself but about humanity. "No mother should ever beg alone," he said quietly. "Not today, not ever." The crowd watched silently. Some faces softened, some eyes widened, and a few people even stepped forward to offer assistance. The story of a human who refused to ignore a mother's plea spread quickly through the spaceport. In hours, everyone would know about Walker, the man who stopped, the man who listened, the man who fought for life when rules and apathy had failed. In the days that followed, the tale grew. Policies were questioned. Emergency protocols were rewritten. Clinics opened their doors to alien families without hesitation. The galaxy, vast and indifferent, had been reminded that courage and compassion could change the course of life. But never sought recognition. He only visited Lyra and when he could. He watched the baby grow stronger, laugh brighter, and learn the wonders of a galaxy that had almost ignored him. Lyra's gratitude never faded, and sometimes she would whisper, "You are more than human." Would smile, shaking his head. "I'm just human enough to not let a mother lose her child," he said, and would reach out with tiny hands, grabbing his fingers, forming a bond stronger than any rules or laws. One evening, Lyra stood at her ship's door, the stars reflecting in her eyes. She bowed deeply, holding close. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice trembling, "for not turning away, for saving life when no one else would." Nodded softly. "The stars are full of life," he said. "Some of it depends on us noticing it." And laughed, the small sound echoing like hope across the metal floor. A life had been saved. A lesson had been taught. And somewhere in the endless galaxy, humanity shone a little brighter. It was not a story about rules, laws, or systems. It was a story about courage, about the power of one human heart refusing to quit, about life triumphing over indifference. And that moment, small yet infinite, changed the spaceport forever.